Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Ediscovery After Hours. My guest this week is Gina O'Neill from Down Under, Herbert Smith and Freehills. We had an awesome conversation. We kicked things off with talking about champagne or bubbles, as it is maybe more properly known. We talked about her travels to the Champagne region of France, what the difference is between actual champagne from that region and sparkling wine from other areas. We talked about DIY home improvements. We talked about globe-trotting vacations for horse races and a whole host of issues, including her LinkedIn posts about the last 30 years of Ediscovery and where she sees the future of the industry going and how teams and workforces may be arranged. So awesome conversation. I know you're going to love it. Hey, the sponsor this week is Discovery Master. Discovery Master just announced new pricing plans, free proof of concepts for qualified entities, and a brand new website that better explains who they are, what they're doing, and how they can help managed services providers, law firms, and corporate legal teams. Check out www.discoverymaster.co. Thanks for tuning in.
Quick time!
You don't know how to drink, your whole generation.
Drinks on the house.
Yes, sir.
No, wait a second. Drinks are 50% off.
Right.
No, wait a second. Double the price of everything.
And I work only 16 hours a day.
A union man only works 8 hours a day.
I belong to 2 unions.
And now, Ediscovery After Hours with your host, Ryan Short.
All right, Gina O'Neill, welcome to Ediscovery After Hours. Cheers.
Thanks, Ryan. Cheers to you too.
All right, here we go. What are we drinking today, whenever this airs?
We are drinking bubbles.
Yeah.
Which, when I first mentioned it to you, you didn't know what bubbles was. So I didn't have
Guilty.
to elaborate.
Yeah, I am an American. So bubbles is champagne for those in the northern half of the Western Hemisphere. Yeah. And so, okay, I got out my wedding china and I knew because I just heard my voice like vibrating off of it. I mean, this is high quality stuff. This is like, it comes out like on our anniversary. And then, like once or twice a year when we randomly want to surprise each other with a nice fancy meal. So this is fantastic.
Well, that's great. So I think I said to you, the benefit of bubbles is that you could drink it morning, noon or night. So it's the all-rounder. It's the perfect all-rounder.
Yeah, it's so true. Now, it's an acquired taste, though, right? I mean, most, like, when a high school kid is trying to sneak a couple of drinks, it's usually cheap beer. So when did you get into champagne? How'd that happen? Or bubbles, sorry.
Well, I got into bubbles probably in my 20s because I live in Australia, in Brisbane, where it's quite hot and humid, a bit probably like your Florida. Yeah. So to have a nice chilled drink with bubbles in it really is great on a really hot day. I think we all started with wines, but I primarily drink red wine or wine in the colder climates.
I love it. Now, do you ever mix bubbles with anything?
Well, not personally, no. Okay. Some people do, so they'll mix it with fruit juice. Yeah. Yeah, but no, I like it in its natural form.
Yeah. You're a purist. I love it.
Exactly.
So the Eiffel Tower is over your shoulder. And when my first daughter was about 6 months old, I was in a wedding, and I was one of the groomsmen. One of my best friends, his mom is from Paris, and so she, like, a condition of the wedding. They're pretty traditional family, so the bride's family picked up most of the wedding tab, and the groom's family picked up most of the rehearsal dinner. But she was like, I want to bring in French champagne, because she lived in Paris till she was like 30 years old, right? Yeah. And so I had never really been a champagne guy. And then at this wedding, I'm having actual French champagne, like in a Minnesota summer, and it was absolutely unbelievable. And my buddy's mom is going around the dance floor holding my 6-month-old daughter in one hand and dipping her finger into her flute with the other and putting it in so we just develop really classy tastes really early here, I guess is what I'm figuring out.
Yeah. So I have actually been to Paris and the Champagne region of France.
Yeah.
I wanted to see how they do it and why it's so special.
Yeah.
So usually you can only call champagne if it has come from one region in France. Anything outside of that that's been produced in other countries or other regions, they're all sparkling wines.
Oh.
And the difference you would have tasted in your French champagne is that the bubbles are smaller. So there's less chance you're going to have a really nasty hangover the next day.
Yes. So true. It's absolutely true.
Yes. So the locally produced champagnes or sparkling wines, you can put them side by side in a glass and you can actually see the difference in the bubble size. And because those bubbles go straight into your blood system, and that's what gives you the headaches.
Oh, that is wild. And now I'm trying to guess, like, how bad is this going to be? It's a good thing this is only a 1-drink show. although I may I might get into the inbox with the second glass afterwards. We'll have to find out. Oh my goodness. All right. So Gina, you first hit my radar when you published something a few months ago. And I forgive me, I can't recall the exact title, but something like 30 years in Ediscovery.
That's right.
And it was, I thought, awesome because I am still a relative newbie. I'm coming up on 2 years in the space, right? Albeit I've been drinking from a fire hose, but I work for a group of litigators who are bootstrapping this piece of software. And they talk about how they've watched, Discovery become e-discovery. But you have been in the trenches of it. And I love that. I want to come back to that post a little later. But first, who are you outside of Ediscovery? You mentioned you're in Brisbane. Are you a native there?
I am born and bred Brisbane. Brisbane's going to be the Olympic host city for 2032.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and I've lived here all of my life. I mean, I did a short stint in New York just for a month or two in 2019, but pretty much I've worked in Brisbane my whole life. And also I work for a national firm or a global firm. So I do actually oversee our national team. So any given day I could be working in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth. So I get around, but I don't actually get around.
So now in the US, right, you have like regional or coastal rivalries, right? So you had like in the 90s, you had like, the East Coast rap and the West Coast rap, or you have, like the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox have this enmity. What are the dynamics down under? Who are friends and who are enemies?
Yeah, that's a good one. So Sydney, they think that they are the national, like the capital.
Yeah.
So Sydney will always think they're the capital. Melbourne are actually quite big and equal Sydney, but there's definitely a rivalry between Sydney and Melbourne. And then Brisbane will always side with Melbourne against Sydney. Plus, also there's a football game between Brisbane and Sydney alone that happens every year, and it's a do or die game. Like everybody follows this game to see which state's going to win. Like it's such a big part of our culture. So we often do have rivalries with Sydney.
Oh, I love it. So what did you do for fun when you were growing up in Brisbane?
Oh, well, when I was growing up, so we would spend probably every weekend at the Gold Coast. That's where our weekends would be spent. When I got a bit older, we were four-wheel driving on the beach. Probably that's a big aspect of our lives growing up.
Oh, yeah. I love that. See, I'm out here. I mean, I'm in a mid-sized city, but I'm 20 minutes from cornfields, and I grew up in a rural area. So when I hear four-wheeling, I think like cornfields, and you're doing it on a beach by the ocean. there's a slight difference in the vistas when you look up. So, all right, that's not bad. How about now? What do you do for fun when you're not clocking in and billing time in Ediscovery now?
Now, it's not a lot really. I've been renovating a house for the last few years. So,
do you do the work on your own, or are you hiring it out?
I hire out and then do some on my own.
Yeah.
My dad taught me all I need to know, I think.
See, I mean, if it weren't like, I don't know, how did people figure out new skills or like DIY stuff before YouTube? Like, do you lean heavily in, like, you're like, oh, I don't know how to wire this outlet, or I don't know how to do this plumbing piece or whatever. Like, are you a YouTuber, or are you just just figure it out?
I'm definitely a YouTuber now. But prior to that, my dad, he was a Boilermaker. So he did a lot of work in steel. Mm. And I would say, Dad, it's fine. We can do this. It's in timber. So if we make a mistake, let's try it. Let's do it. The worst thing that could go wrong is we'll need to get a contractor in to fix it up. Yeah. So we would always attempt it ourselves with wood. And I think the hardest thing for us, not being builders ourselves, is angles, cuts and angles. Yeah, it's really interesting. You went to school, you learnt that maths, and now you need to try and apply it.
It's a lot easier when it's formulas on a piece of paper, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, imagine you've got a roof, like a roof on an angle, and now you want to put something off of that. Yeah. What angle do you need to cut on that thing that goes off? Yeah. Yeah. So
what's the most ambitious project you've undertaken yourself? And I want to know what it was, and did you complete it successfully, or did you have to have a contractor bail you out?
Interesting. The most ambitious was I had a downpipe that was leaking onto the house, and it had rotted the boards of the house on a corner. Uh-huh. And it was right near the foundations as well. Mm. And I didn't know I was going to have to cut away the outside skin and then put a new boards on. Uh-huh. And I didn't know, once I got in there, for starters, I didn't even know how to get these boards off. So I just used a little chisel and I chiseled it right. Once I got in there, I didn't know if I was going to find out that the foundations had rotted as well. That was my scary bit. Anyway, I got in there. The foundations were fine. It took me 2 days to chisel these boards off. And then I just put new boards on. It looks perfect. It's been perfect for 5 years now.
Hey, there you go. That holds up over time. That's good. See, I find that, like, the demo, I can handle that. A crowbar, a hammer, whatever it is. It's putting things back together. That's where I get like, ooh, this is not. I need to pay somebody else to do this, because my house will, like, I'm okay attempting like carpentry, right? Because, okay, it doesn't work. You rip it out, you start over. But like anything that has to do with wiring or plumbing, I'm like, if my house burns down or floods, that's a problem. So I can't even attempt that stuff. Would you mess around with that?
I did change I changed the outside plumbing for this particular job. We're not allowed to touch the wires here in this country.
That's probably smart.
Because the houses just burn down if you get it wrong.
That would be problematic if you had a rash of like man-made created wildfires in an urban area. That probably wouldn't be good. All right. So you've been to the Champagne region of France. Are you a world traveler, or is this like a solo trip? You were a woman on a mission. You want to see what these bubbles come from, or you spread out?
I am a world traveller now, the last few years or 10 years or so. Prior to that, I wasn't, just because I bought a house and I was paying it off and getting into that routine. But in the last, I would say, 8 or 9 years, I definitely have travelled. And I've been to many places, and most of the time I will be driven by either horse racing scene or the champagne and wine scenes.
Really?
Yeah.
Horse racing. Tell me more.
Yeah. Well, from time to time, our families have all owned racehorses, and it's just so incredible to watch and follow them. It's really fun. And now I find fun is going around to all the different countries and seeing how they do it.
Yeah. Have you been to the Kentucky Derby?
I haven't. It is on my list, though, to do it.
In like the global equestrian scene, how does it rank? Because, in the United States, the Kentucky Derby, like that's the race, and you've got Preakness and you've got other things, but like it's the one that has the cachet and the tradition and at least in the part of the country where I'm located. But like when you think globally, is it even top 10? I mean, I have no idea.
It absolutely is, because isn't Churchill buried around there somewhere?
Oh gosh, I don't think so. Like Winston Churchill? Wouldn't he be buried in the UK?
No, Churchill the racehorse.
Oh, probably. Yeah. It's called Churchill Down, so that would make sense. You can see I'm illuminating my ignorance now of the sport, and I'm a little embarrassed, so I'm going to take a drink so I can stop talking.
I do. Yes, it is definitely up there in the world scale of things. I remember there's been quite a few that have won. There's the Triple Crown. I love the Triple Crown. Yeah. I've got on my wall up here is Secretariat, who is an American horse and won the Triple Crown in 1973, and that means that he won 3 premier races in the 1 year. Yeah. But yeah, you have that derby. The French have the Arc de Triomphe. The UK have I forget now. The UK definitely have one. We sent a horse over there to the UK. It was called Black Caviar. Not mine personally, but the country, Australia, had this famous horse that went over to the UK. And I actually did have a holiday to go and see her run.
Oh, cool.
She was a superstar. I think she won 25 races in a row. And It was amazing. It was incomparable with I think Zenyatta won 20 in a row. Like, there's some pretty famous horses.
No kidding. So did you or do you ride?
I do not know, but I could have in my earlier days, because I'm only 5'2", and I used to be very, very tiny. So given the opportunity, I reckon I could have ridden a racehorse.
Oh my goodness, I love it. All right, so I want to circle back to the 30 years in Ediscovery, the post that you put on LinkedIn, which I was eating up and was hoping it was going to be like this weekly thing where you're pulling back the curtain on how this crazy, weird little industry came to be. So kind of, if you could, for the folks who didn't get a chance to see it, which by the way, you can still find it on Gina's LinkedIn page if you go and look at her old posts, but kind of talk to me about what caused you to write that and what were some of maybe the fun memories that it uncovered for you?
Yeah, well, I was feeling a bit nostalgic being 30 years, and I don't know if I'll make 40. Let's see. But also, one of the things that made me write that is an interview I conducted with somebody, and they were talking about Ediscovery being so new. And the interview was with me, and I'm like, it's not that new. It has been around for a long time, and it is a stable profession to be in. Yeah. So that's what I just really wanted to let everyone know that there has been a build up to this, to where we are today, but obviously it's going to accelerate a lot from here as well. We're not at the end stage yet, nowhere near it.
Yeah, that's wild. So when you think about, and this is where we'll kind of turn it over, which is good because my laptop battery is chiming at me because I neglected to plug in before this episode. So when we think about kind of, we typically wrap up these episodes. I ask my guests to get on some kind of a soapbox, something they're excited about or something that they are, frustrated about, or it's something they want to promote. So you've written about how Ediscovery has evolved over the last 30 years. When you look out over the next 5 or 10, what do you see?
Yeah. I see a really fast acceleration. So in those first 10 years or 20 years, it was kind of slow going as we got our processes together and data together and how we're going to work with the data and best use it for our workflows. I think we're there now. But what I see in the next 5 years is a really fast acceleration of technology. So what concerns me the most is how will everybody keep up? Like, how is everybody going to be not smart enough, but how's everyone going to teach themselves and train themselves and keep onboarding all this new knowledge as fast as we need them to onboard the knowledge? Especially with the AI and workflows, and, there'll be more to come after AI as well. So that's probably my biggest thought at the moment about what the next 5 years looks like.
Do you have any thoughts or opinions? And I'm totally putting you in the spot, so you can tell me to shove off. But do you have any thoughts or opinions on whether the industry should operate today or will or should operate in the future in terms of silos? Like, for example, some service provider, large, global service providers, if they're engaged with the corporate client, let's say, they may have a collection specialist who hands the client off to a processing specialist, who hands them off to a review specialist, who hands them off to and so no matter, for this particular project, the client may have 4, 5, 6 different people they're interacting with. And then other, typically smaller, maybe local or regional providers have this single point of contact approach. You operate within a global firm, you run a national team. So I guess, whether it's through the lens of how you operate today or how you think you'll have to in the future with all of these advances, do you tend to prefer a siloed approach or hey, we need to be generalists and be able to speak the language of everything? How do you come down on that, if that even makes sense at all as a premise?
It certainly does. And I'm wondering whether there will be a generalist in the future. Oh. It might be that we need to look at it like the legal teams look at it. If you're a business, you go to a law firm, you want to buy a business, you then get into litigation, or you need to sell the business, you're going through different groups of people. So I'm wondering whether the future for Ediscovery does actually look like we do need to focus our talent on silos, rather than having the all-in information, because I just don't know how quickly we can get the knowledge into people.
Yeah. Hey, I'm like I said earlier, I'm 2 years in and drinking from a fire hose still every day. So yeah, I get that. That's really interesting. I have never heard nor considered the comparison of, hey, I'm incorporating an entity. I want a, just a business lawyer, right? We're bringing in an investor or whatever. I need a transactional lawyer. Oh, now I need a litigator. That's such a natural comparison that I have never heard. So many kudos to letting me marinate on that and all of our many global listeners as well. Gina, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Cheers.
Cheers.